welcome back to You Can't Make This Shit Up. I'm Kellen. That's David, or that's David. Got to angle my fingers right. And we are the hosts for your funeral today. David, what do we got?
All right, all right, all right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to You Can't Make This Shit Up. And today we are going to talk about our friend, Governor Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis' ambitious plan to outsource his field operation to the super PAC, Never Back Down, faces challenges. Despite spending over $30 million on the extensive ground game in early primary states, DeSantis' poll numbers remain stagnant. The super PAC's door knocking efforts, led by paid canvassers and volunteers, are criticized for feeling inauthentic and lacking effectiveness. Internal disruptions, quality control issues, and competition from other campaigns further jeopardize DeSantis' strategy. With the Iowa caucuses approaching very soon, the governor's gamble tests campaign finance limits and the influence of money on voter sentiment. Let's go. All right, Kellen. I
Yeah.
love field operations. Let me put it out there. It's where I got my start in politics. And I'm
Yeah.
impressed about this particular effort. $30 million.
It
However,
is one of the most expensive political operations ever.
mhm,
And common sense would tell you that you have the most money, you can put out the most advertisements, you can pay the most canvassers, you can, put on the best events, you can make the strongest impression, but it hasn't worked. And I mean there's a thousand different reasons we can theorize. One of which I suspect is the feeling of personalization that people desire with their messages. People want to feel, they want to see a message, but they don't want to be inundated with a message. When you a wide scale operation like this industrial scale, it was described as described in the article that we're reading beforehand. A lot of them had iPads. A lot of these guys walk around with iPads. They have like earpieces. They're paid, and they're everywhere. There's a swarm of them, and I think what happens to a lot of people, why they say it feels inauthentic, is because they're not just being exposed to the message of Ron DeSantis, they're being overloaded with it. And if somebody feels overloaded with a message, they're usually less responsive to it. It's just my theory.
that's a very good point, and something to take into consideration in our own practice with our own political candidates. I have 2 points that I think has contributed to the to DeSantis not really taking really getting his message across effectively and doing so well in the polling numbers. The first, and actually, these 2 points are about 2 men. And the first is DeSantis himself. DeSantis is very hard to like. He's a very awkward candidate, and being right of Donald Trump, trying to out MAGA Donald Trump, is not doing it. Iowa is a conservative leaning state, and they're focusing their caucus activities to those hardcore voters who come out for the caucuses. And so they're going to be more to the right. So okay,
Yeah.
his messaging is going to stick in that lane. However, it's not working, and it hasn't been working. The second point is the second man, Donald J. Trump. Former President Trump has a stranglehold over these caucuses and primary states that matter so early. And his message, despite all the issues that he's going through, his message his message still sticks. He is the presumptive nominee for the Republicans. And it's hard to imitate or replicate the original.
Yeah.
And DeSantis, I rolled off DeSantis's campaign the night that he announced it on then Twitter. It was a debacle, and I was hoping again for a very robust campaign challenging uh, Donald Trump, and it never materialized. Ron DeSantis stayed in that woke cultural war lane that really didn't answer the kitchen table issues that voters had, at least from my point of view. Maybe the Iowa caucus voters see it differently. Maybe the cultural war issues are the kitchen table issues, but I highly doubt that. So
And
those
that's a problem, I think, with DeSantis's governing over here. He's all social issues all the time. People are still have heavy anxiety about the economy because their real income hasn't caught up to the inflation yet. What does DeSantis have to say? Nothing really. Nothing that any individual voter, couldn't tell you, at least. And like you said, those kitchen table issues, what are the solutions? What's the solution to immigration? Invade Mexico? No. But you're absolutely right. I mean, he's given some wrong answers on debate. There's also been the AI controversies where some rogue, this happened two separate times, where some rogue operative posted an AI image on DeSantis' socials, pretended it was real. I mean that right there tells
right.
you that right there is all you need to know, that economy of scale does not necessarily apply to a campaign like this, because then the people operating are not, they're not close to the candidate, and nonsense like that happens. For every good canvasser you have, you might just have somebody who doesn't care and is just waiting to cash their paycheck. Economy of scale issues, I think,
You know,
are
you
at
make
play.
that's a very good point, Kellen. The Because DeSantis did farm out this part of the campaign to the super PAC, Never Back Down. There's a disconnect, and there's a disconnect of passion for the candidate in the campaign. There is a disconnect of knowledge of the candidate, intimacies of a campaign, the flavor, the climate of the campaign is missing when you farm out at this scale your field operations to another entity, and you expect that people would embrace the messaging, would embrace the thought of someone coming to their front door, knocking on their door, and passionately promoting their candidate. That's probably not happening. And then you have your situations where something, you know, bad happens. As I was saying earlier, you have these ring cameras on doors now, and you gotta be careful what you say and what you're doing when you're walking the neighborhood, because there's cameras and microphones everywhere now. So you know, it was an ambitious plan. It was a hell of an investment of 30 million plus. I can't wait to see the outcome of the Iowa caucuses and the New Hampshire primary, South Carolina primary, where part of the canvassing effort was made. But wow, this it's disappointing.
Mhm.
Again, it's disappointing to see the DeSantis campaign kind of um, flicker out.
Yeah. And you mentioned flavor earlier. You said the flavor of the campaign misses in something like this. If there's one general issue that plagued the DeSantis campaign, is that it's sterile. He's like it's like you get the sometimes questionable policy of Donald Trump without the fun of Donald Trump. I don't see Ron DeSantis making NFT collections, do I? You don't
Right.
see, you don't see DeSantis doing the goofy dance. You don't see DeSantis throwing water bottles, being a loudmouth. You don't get this stuff. You don't get exciting things, or you don't get, or even looking at his other opponents, you don't get somebody like Vivek. Eminem had to send a cease and desist because Vivek kept rapping on the campaign trail. Now that's weird. That's exciting. Or even someone like Haley, who, while she didn't have the economies of scale and wasn't this big personality like Vivek and Donald are, but a lot of voters felt that there was a stronger personal connection via that smaller campaign and via more direct involvement from her. So a sterile campaign, no matter how much you fund it, if you don't have flavor, you're already dead. You're already dead in the water, especially in the face of competition who has flavor in spades.
Correct.
Like,
It's more of a popularity contest, right? You know,
yeah,
and hands down, you know, Donald J. Trump knows how to play it up, and
yeah,
Ron DeSantis is he's a caricature of a candidate. He is stiff. He is anxiety provoking. You know, I just feel anxious when I see him on the campaign trail. And maybe perhaps I've had high expectations of the campaign, but
maybe.
as stated earlier in podcasts of old, who the fuck is running your campaign, Ron DeSantis? Who are these amateurs? And we're talking about, some big personalities in the consultant, space. But mercy me, do better.
Yeah, they needed to highlight the good parts of Ron's personality more. They needed to better emphasize his track record, which I don't think they've done. Because if they're gonna bat in this conservative lane, they can. I mean, they have claims that even someone like Donald Trump can't say he's got. Something that Haley won't compete on because she's less big on that. Something Ramaswamy, while he would probably support, wouldn't be big on. DeSantis has like the most track record with these big social issues that keep becoming more and more important because those seem to be becoming the more prevalent issues these days for whatever reason. But I think he's failed to capitalize on that. And when he does say we did it in Florida, the law is always in court.
Exactly.
It's like, you
He
know,
passed the law and the law is in court.
oh,
Exactly.
yeah. And some of them, and like recently, the live adult entertainment bill actually got canned in court. Like that bill isn't going to happen anymore. At
Right.
least not in the original form.
Right.
Chances are they'll make a new one focused on messaging, which is what it should have been from the start. But that's the issue. They failed to capitalize on track record, both because there were issues within his track record, but also because I don't know, they just decided not to. Instead, they just went very general.
The campaign seemed pensive. It did not seem like they really wanted this nomination coming out the gate, that they did not take on uh, Trump hard enough when they had the opportunity to launch way before they did. When the indictment started rolling out, that was an opportune time to launch, but they kept pushing it back, pushing it back, pushing it back. And Florida Republicans, I can't believe I'm saying this, but this should be common knowledge now. The Florida Republicans needed to show strong leadership, that what they're doing is effective, that it's working, and that this is the blueprint for America. And like you just said, they're losing in court. The Florida GOP is in disarray. They're eating their own. Christian Ziegler is embroiled in his own controversy. The executive board of the Florida GOP has stripped him of his salary, except for $1, and of his power. The This is not good times for
No.
Florida. This is not good times for Florida conservatives. This is not good times for Florida Republicans.
Yeah. And a governor who runs for president, their track record is their greatest asset because you've led the executive branch of government and hopefully you've done it well. It's the best thing that you can have on your resume. People want different things as president, but people who can say that not only do they support X, Y, and Z plan, but they did XYZ plan and they did it right. And the fact that he's not always coming out here swinging saying he did, I think is sadly a reflection of here that it did not work the way that they wanted to, and or maybe in their eyes it should have, but it didn't pan out for some reason, or they're nervous because they're all caught up in court, or whatever. Like they don't seem confident in the track record when
Right.
they're very placid in their approach. Like you said, they didn't come out gunning for Donald Trump. They kept pushing their their launch date back. It reeks of over caution. It
Exactly.
it reeks of trying to play it safe at all costs. When
Yes.
a
And
candidate versus a candidate whose legislation veers very far in one direction, and that candidate also is very safe. It's a weird combination of things. Like you're gonna have policy that appeals to like a very loud, by and large minority, very loud group, but then you're not going to gear your personality towards that either.
right.
So you got your policy, which is off putting for moderates, and your personality, which is off putting to the more extreme branch. You get that it's the worst of both worlds. It's
And
nonsense.
this is a cautionary tale for the Democrats. Donald J. Trump changed how national campaigns are run. He's changed how politics is in America. And so, for the Florida Democrats, first of all, hopefully they fundraise the hell off of all of this, off of the Ziegler issue, the GOP, the Florida GOP falling apart, and also the shortcomings and failures of the DeSantis 2024 presidential run campaign. This is an opportune time.
Yeah.
Also, highlight again a lot of this legislation that's being proposed for this next legislative session that targets certain demographics and populations, continuing this cultural war, and show how nasty and bitter Florida Republicans are. If I was the Democrats, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
At the national level, again, recognize that Donald J. Trump, I can't believe we're talking about DeSantis, and I must have mentioned the former President Trump's name at least maybe 7 times already. But for the National Democrats, understand that you know the Republicans' best alternative 6 months ago, 8 months ago, 12 months ago failed, and he failed on his own. Trump had to do very little to help him out.
Yeah, Trump, despite being a guy who loves to talk up his own wealth a lot, spent less money. He's spent less money. He's had fewer canvassers. He's had fewer ads. He's had fewer everything. He's so confident he's gonna win that he's literally like saving his money. Like he's just saving his money, and it works because with a campaign like the Trump campaign,
Right.
the relationship is parasocial. It's this larger than life character who's
Yes.
just like me, total edgelord kind of deal. And
My final say on this is that it was nice knowing you, Ron. Come on back to Florida. I'm sure that if you don't have an exceptional turnout in the Iowa caucuses, that you should just pack it up. Again, come back to Florida. I believe the legislative session would be either close to being over or whatever, but your political futures will be probably sealed after Iowa. And let It was fun. It was interesting. Let's put it that way.
It
Disappointing, but
informative.
learned a lot.
Yeah, it was a very informative time. If Ron is super serious about making sure Donald Trump isn't the candidate, I think the best thing he could do is just drop out
Yeah,
and throw support to one of the other three.
yeah,
I think that's the best thing, and I think this probably goes to Christie too, because his support is a little bit too niche. I think the best thing, if they really want it to not be Trump, the logical thing is for them to drop out.
right.
Unfortunately, never back down, never give up. There's and you know
Never
what?
again.
And I don't think Ron's missing out too much. This is Florida. There's plenty of swampland here. With that, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Remember to share. We want to grow this community, and we are your political innovators here in Central Florida. Thank you for watching. You Can't Make This Shit Up, and we are